There's a specific sound a hospital door makes when it opens slower than it needs to. Like whoever's on the other side already knows they don't have the right to walk through it fast. I heard that sound at 11:47 on a Tuesday night, 40 minutes after my son took his first breath, and I looked up expecting a nurse. I'm 41 years old. My father walked out of my life on a Thursday afternoon in the spring of 2004, when I was 19. No note, no goodbye, just a truck missing from the driveway when I got home from baseball practice, and a silence in the house that lasted years longer than anybody official ever explained to me. 22 years. That's how long it had been since I'd heard his voice, seen his handwriting, known for certain whether he was even still alive. He was standing in the doorway of my son's delivery room, hat in his hands the way men of his generation hold a hat when they don't know what else to do with themselves, looking older than the picture I still had of him in my head. Grayer, smaller somehow, like the years had taken something out of him too. Neither of us said a word for what felt like a full minute. I just sat there, my newborn son against my chest, staring at a man I'd spent half my life trying to stop waiting for. I found out later how he'd known. It wasn't me who told him, and it wasn't my mother, though I half suspected her for about a day before I learned the truth. It was my Aunt Graziella, his sister, the one member of his family who'd never fully let him go the way the rest of us had, kept up an occasional call or letter over the years, a thread none of us asked about because it felt disrespectful to Mom to even bring it up. She'd texted him a photo of Rachel's growing belly back in the spring, one my wife had posted online without thinking twice about who might see it, and Graziella, without asking anybody's permission, had forwarded it to a number she still had for him. He'd been living 2 hours away the whole time. 2 hours. 22 years, and he'd been close enough to drive over on a Sunday afternoon more times than I could count, and never once had. Graciela called him again the night Rachel went into labor, this time on purpose, this time with my mother's reluctant blessing, the two of them deciding together, without consulting me, that this was a moment that outweighed whatever old wounds might get reopened by it. I didn't ask for him to come. I want that understood clearly. Somebody else made that call for me, and I only found out he was in the building when a nurse mentioned, almost in passing, that there was a man in the waiting room asking about the Reyes family. My first instinct, hearing that name mentioned by a nurse who had no idea what she was setting off, was to tell her to send him home. I actually stood up to do it, handed my son to Rachel, who could see something shift in my face even through her own exhaustion, and started toward the door with every intention of meeting him in that hallway and telling him, calmly but finally, that he didn't get to show up now, 22 years too late, on the one night that belonged entirely to my own family. I made it about 10 feet before my mother caught my arm. She didn't say much. She never does when it matters most. Just looked at me the way she used to when I was a kid about to make a decision I'd regret, and said, "You don't have to forgive him tonight, me Joe, but don't make a choice out of anger you can't take back once you've made it." I stood in that hallway a long time, torn between 22 years of justified fury and something else underneath it I hadn't let myself examine in a while. Some small, stubborn part of me that had never fully stopped being 19 years old, standing in an empty driveway, wondering what he'd say if he ever came back. I didn't send him home. I just didn't know yet what I was going to do instead. The room went quiet in a way I've never experienced before or since. Not an easy silence, not a peaceful one, just the specific weight of two people who owed each other 22 years of conversation, standing 3 feet apart with none of it available to either of us yet. Rachel held our son a little tighter, watching me, waiting to see which direction this was going to go. My mother stayed in the doorway, close enough to intervene, far enough to let it be mine to handle. My father looked at the baby first, then at me, then back down at the hat in his hands like it was the only thing keeping him upright. He'd aged in ways that surprised me. A limp I didn't remember, hands that shook slightly, gray hair where I still pictured black. 22 years is a long time for a person to age without you there to watch it happen gradually. "He's beautiful," he finally said, voice rougher than I remembered, cracking slightly on the second word. "What's his name?" I told him. Simple, ordinary information, the kind of thing you'd tell anybody. It felt strange handing it over to him, like I was giving him something he hadn't earned the right to yet, but I gave it anyway, and something in his face shifted when I said it. Relief, maybe, or the particular grief of a man realizing how much he'd missed learning to ask questions like that one. Growing up without him wasn't one dramatic loss. It was hundreds of small ones stacked up over years until they became the shape of my whole childhood. It was every Little League game with an empty spot in the bleachers where a father should have been. It was my mother working double shifts at the hospital cafeteria to keep the lights on, coming home too tired most nights to do more than heat up whatever Graciela had dropped off that week. It was learning to shave from a YouTube video because there was nobody else to ask. There'd been a handful of attempts at contact over the years. A birthday card when I turned 25, no return address. A stilted phone call around the time I got married that ended after 4 minutes because neither of us knew how to fill the silence between the small talk. I'd stopped expecting anything after that. Told myself I'd made peace with it, the way people tell themselves things that aren't quite true because the alternative is too heavy to carry every day. Rachel knew all of this, of course, had heard the whole history a dozen times over the years we'd been together. She caught my eye across the room that night. A silent question, "Are you okay?" And I gave her the smallest nod I could manage, not entirely sure it was true. My mother stayed close that whole first hour, saying little, watching my father with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not warmth exactly, but not the anger I might have expected either. 22 years had given her time to arrive somewhere with her own feelings about him that I hadn't fully caught up to yet. "I'm not doing this for him," she told me quietly at one point, stepping just outside the door with me while Rachel and the baby rested. "I'm doing it because your son deserves to know where half of him comes from, if that's something you decide you want for him. That's all this is, nothing more than that." I appreciated her drawing that line clearly. It gave me permission to hold my own line too, to let him stay in the room without pretending 22 years could be undone by one good night. He asked, carefully, if he could hold his grandson. I looked at Rachel, who gave a small nod, and I found myself saying yes, mostly to see what would happen, some old curiosity about who this man actually was underneath the mythology I'd built of him in his absence. He held my son like something breakable, tears running freely down a face he didn't bother wiping, and for the first time all night, I saw something in him I recognized. Not the father who left, but maybe the man he might have been the whole time if things had gone differently. It was almost 2 a.m. before either of us said anything real. Rachel and the baby had finally drifted off. My mother had stepped out to call Graciela with an update, and it was just the 2 of us in that quiet hospital room, the machines humming low, 22 years of silence finally running out of places to hide. "I know, sorry doesn't undo it," he said, still looking at the baby instead of me, like it was easier to say to him than to my face. I know there's no version of tonight that makes up for every game I missed, every birthday, every time you needed a father and got nothing instead. I didn't say anything, just let him keep going, some instinct telling me this was the only chance either of us might get at this. But I watched you tonight, he said, finally looking up. The way you held him the second he was born. The way you talked to Rachel. So calm, so steady. You didn't learn that from me. You built that yourself, out of nothing, because you decided a long time ago you weren't going to be the man I was. His voice broke fully then. I don't get to take credit for the father you turned into. I know that. I just needed you to know I see it. I see everything I cost you and everything you became anyway, in spite of me. 22 years of silence, and that was the thing that finally broke it. Not an apology, exactly, but something closer to being seen, fully, by the one person whose absence had shaped nearly every choice I'd made without him. I didn't forgive him that night. I want to be honest about that, because I think there's a version of this story people expect where 22 years dissolve in one hospital room, and that's not what happened, and I don't think it needed to be for something real to have taken place there anyway. What happened instead was smaller and, I think, more honest. He said the thing out loud that neither of us had ever managed to say across 22 years of silence, that he knew what he'd cost me, and that he saw who I'd become in spite of it, not because of anything he'd done. I don't think broken things always need to be fixed to matter. Sometimes they just need to be named, finally, by the person who broke them. If you're waiting on somebody to say the thing you've needed to hear for years, I can't promise they will. But if they ever do, even decades late, even imperfectly, I hope you let yourself feel whatever that unlocks in you, instead of deciding in advance it's too late to count. It's been 3 months now. My father comes by every couple of weeks, always calling ahead first, never assuming he's owed a visit the way he might have once believed fathers automatically are. We're not close, not the way people mean when they use that word for families with no history to work around. There's still a wariness in me I don't think will ever fully go away. And I've told him as much, directly, more than once. He's never argued with me about it. Just nods, says he understands, keeps showing up anyway on whatever terms I set. Rachel says she notices something different in me since that night. Less braced, somehow, like I'd been carrying a question for 22 years that finally got answered, even if the answer wasn't the one I would have written for myself. My mother's cautiously glad, mostly for my son's sake, though I know it costs her something every time she watches him walk through our door. My son doesn't know any of this history yet. For now, he just knows there's a grandfather who shows up sometimes with a rattle in his coat pocket, who cries a little every time he holds him, for reasons my son won't understand for years, if ever fully. I watched my father hold my son again last weekend, out on our back porch, the Texas heat already thick even in early morning. And I thought about that hospital door, the slow way it had opened, the 22 years of silence that had walked in behind him. I don't know exactly what we are to each other now, not strangers anymore, not quite what a father and son are supposed to be either. That version got lost somewhere back in 2004 and isn't coming back, no matter how many Sunday visits we manage to build now. What we are, I think, is two people slowly learning how to exist in the same room again, one visit at a time, neither of us pretending the 22 years didn't happen. My son grabbed his finger that morning, the way babies do, no understanding yet of anything that came before him. My father looked down at that tiny hand wrapped around his, and something in his face broke open again. Quiet this time. No words needed. I didn't look away. For the first time in a long time, I let myself just watch it happen.